Chicago Bears, Washington Commanders, Monday Night Football. Everything you need to know for your fantasy teams and player picks in 15 minutes. If you've never been here before, welcome. My name is Max. I make these for every primetime game and every game on Sunday, giving you a unique edge, looking at run scheme metrics, coverage data, and overall trends that nobody talks about because it relates to the X's and O's behind the game instead of just the numbers on your screen. Without further ado, let's talk about this game. As always, there's a link in the description to the other Monday Night Football breakdown, the Bills Falcons breakdown, as well as my socials, which is where all my picks will be. Make sure you're locked in over there. Washington, 5.5-point favorites, and the total is 49.5. I think that's a lot of points. I think Chicago can keep it in the number. I'll give you my 2 cents on the actual number at the end, but important injury updates. Grady Jarrett, Terry McLaurin, and Noah Brown are all out. Debo's dealing with I think it's an ankle injury, a lower extremity injury, and his status is TBD for right now. He's questionable. I personally think he will play. All injury updates will be in the description. Looking at this Bears defense, though, the bottom line here is picking your poison when you're in offense. You have to attack him on the ground or attack him in the slot. For the Bears, you load up to stop the run, or you load up to help people in the slot, Nick McLeod specifically. Potential problems here. The Bears arguably have the worst run defense in the NFL. Second most yards per game, most yards per carry. They're also giving up 7+ tight end receptions per game, and they're moderately predictable in terms of what they do defensively. Matt Eberflus, who used to be a big zone guy, is now playing a little bit more man, which weird, doesn't really work to me. Regardless, Washington versus man-to-man, though, Deebo Samuel, regardless if Terry McLaurin is playing or not, is the guy. Second highest man-to-man target percentage behind, oddly enough, Jalen Lane, who has had 16+ yards in 2 straight games. Definitely worth noting. We'll talk about him at the end. And Luke McCaffrey is the most explosive receiver technically in terms of yards per route run against man coverage. Issue is he's not playing a ton of snaps, so I'm not leaning into him too much. Bill Krosky-Merritt is the main guy we have to talk about, though, right? We talked about this run defense being arguably the worst in the NFL, second most yards per game, most yards per carry. They can't stop a nosebleed on the ground. Bill Krosky-Merritt's projection for rush yards is 69.5, which I think is really, really low. You look at the overall numbers and you'll see the 2 of 5 hit rate. The reality is he has not been the starter in every single game. He also has not gotten full volume in every single game. When he's gotten 10+ carries, he's waxed that number both times. There's been 2 times he's gotten 10+ carries, and his projection for this game in terms of overall attempts is 14.5. If you operate along that logic, I like him to get 70 yards on the ground, especially if they are favored here. Vegas likes the favorite. I love Bill Krosky-Merritt to work on the ground. Offensive target rate's very interesting because Jaden Daniels is top 10 in out wide target rate. However, some of that comes with Terry McLaurin. He does throw the ball to the slot a decent amount, right? They're above average in terms of how often they throw to the slot because Debo's in it. But Luke McCaffrey is the main out wide guy. So we have to talk about him in terms of his overall production, what that means for his yards and receptions. But Debo is mainly a slot receiver in terms of how often he runs routes from the slot, his efficiency numbers from the slot, and his targets. It's between the hashes. That's who he is. He's a motion guy. It makes too much sense. He is going against Nick McLeod, who is the Bears slot defender, who's been really bad in the slot. Comparatively, one of the highest yards per target in terms of all slot defenders in the entire NFL. Now, the only other interesting note about the Bears defense here is that they're top 5 in inline target rate. So if you want a fun touchdown scorer on the Commanders side, I think Zach Ertz is worth looking at, right? The production could potentially be there for Ertz. The opportunity will be more likely there for him, though. I trust Ertz getting 4 to 5 targets instead of Ertz having a 40-yard game or a 4-catch game. For me, the red zone usage for tight ends always goes up when I look at these teams. I like Zach Ertz to potentially get in the end zone, Deebo Samuel's projections, 60 yards through the air, 5.5 receptions. I feel more comfortable with the receiving yards because it's a man-to-man team. I tend to lean yards instead of catches, less volume, more opportunity to break big plays. But I can't confidently lean into Commanders because 5.5-point favorites. I think they're going to have a big advantage on the ground that they're going to lean into. I really do like it on the ground for especially Bill Krosky-Merritt, but the Commanders. However, Jalen Lane is a guy for me. Again, we talked about 16+ in 2 straight games for him. He's not playing a ton of snaps, but his projection right now is 16. And I think because he's being so heavily targeted against man, no Noah Brown, no Terry McLaurin, he is absolutely worth leaning into offensively at that 15.5 number. Luke McCaffrey, 20.5, same thing. He's hit it in 3 of 4. I would feel more comfortable taking my shots with these guys who are, again, Luke McCaffrey really explosive against man. Jalen Lane, technically a higher target rate than Deebo Samuel against man. Not a ton of targets, but higher target rate. I would take my shots with those guys in terms of the pass game before I did with Deebo Samuel. But if you wanted a watered down leg, I love Deebo Samuel 40 plus yards. You compare it with Okrosky Merritt 50 plus rushing, and then something in the Bears world. Let's talk Chicago. Offense against this Commanders defense. The bottom line with the Washington Commanders defense is, do you trust your defensive backs? I tried to do some deep digging with Ben Johnson's approach against the Commanders last year because defensively, they are very similar, especially in the back end, and the approach is very similar. And I'll preface by saying not a lot of run scheme data here for the Commanders defense. The Bears don't run the ball great, and the Commanders run defense is pretty solid. We don't really need to talk about that much. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 8 for 137 in the game. Now, part of it was a game flow thing, right? Lions were losing. They had to throw the ball. I think more of it is that's your best man-to-man guy. That's the guy you trust one-on-one the most if you're Jared Goff. The guy that Caleb Williams very clearly trusts one-on-one, man-to-man the most is Rome Odunze. But numbers don't love Rome Odunze in terms of his target rates and his yards per route run, just generally speaking compared to some of these other players. Gibbs and Laporta had big games receiving. I don't want to lean into Cole Kmet, Colson Loveland, or DeAndre Swift through the air. If you'd like to be my guest, I'm not doing it. The only data outlier here is, again, through the air. Commanders get up the 10th most pass yards in the entire NFL. Partially because I think teams don't want to run the ball on them. They're, again, top 12 in middle field closed. So they're going to load the box. They're going to make it harder to run and easier to check out of runs. But they're also top 12 man-to-man, and teams like to take their shots against them. We saw a huge game from Drake London last week because Michael Penix very, very clearly trusted him. We saw some Trey Tucker reps and success against them a few weeks ago. I like the Bears pass catchers a lot against this Commanders team. Now, Rome Odunze, insanely high target rate versus man-to-man coverage. Insanely high, right? That's where Caleb Williams likes to go. That's his Amon-Ra, right? That's his Amon-Ra. Olamide Zaccheaus is right behind him. It's a weird revenge game spot, especially when you go down and look at the target rates. They are targeted, the Washington Commanders, in the slot at the third highest rate. Mike Sanders still is a good player, but the reality is, for some reason, even though I don't love the outside corners for Washington, and Marshawn Lattimore is a good player, but I don't love the matchups they present against quicker guys like Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Mike Sanders still is the guy they pick on. Oddly enough, Olamide Zaccheaus has the most routes from the slot. I know, it's a revenge game spot. You want a fun touchdown? There you go. We'll talk his actual numbers here in a second. But DJ Moore with more, no pun intended, routes than Odunze from the slot is also worth looking at, because I think if there is a Marshawn Lattimore shadow, which take with a grain of salt, we've seen people beat the Lattimore shadow before, it's going to go to Odunze. Now, I look at Rome Odunze's numbers here, 65.5 and 4.5. Volume for me with Odunze, I don't like that. It scares me. It's a Ben Johnson thing where he's always going to scheme up whoever has the best matchups to get the ball. Now, I like Rome Odunze in this game in terms of matchup, but does Ben Johnson? I don't know, and that's the question I have to rationalize with myself. I can't trust volume there. I can't trust volume with Zaccheaus, and I cannot, definitely, this should be the other way around. This should be reception. This should be yards. Cannot trust volume with DJ Moore. But you know what I can trust with DJ Moore? His ability to make explosive plays. He's gotten at least 34 yards in 3 of 4 games. I think he's going to be the guy who has a good amount of slot routes, but also avoids the Marshawn Lattimore shadow. Like, for all intents and purposes, if Zaccheaus is the main inside guy one-on-one against Mike Sanders still, and Marshawn Lattimore is following a DJ Moore, following a Rome Odunze, I think Moore will benefit. I do. Now, I do think Rome Odunze long reception, I believe is at 19.5 right now, is absolutely worth looking into as well. But the bottom line here with the Bears, and I'm going to put a pin in this whole breakdown by saying this: Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson are having some success here, especially against those teams that are a little more man-heavy, like the Detroit Lions offensively had some success. They're having their way in terms of getting explosives and scheming things up. They're coming off of a bye week. Their defense, obviously, they don't have Grady Jarrett or Jalen Johnson, arguably their 2 best players, but as team, and specifically, not defense, team overall, as healthy as it's been, I don't hate the Bears to take advantage of the matchups they're going to get on the outside and on the inside. And the reality is, I think they can do enough in the pass game to bottle Washington up. I don't think they win this game, but I think they can keep it within this 5.5 number. I really do. As always, guys, I appreciate you watching and listening. There is the other Monday Night Football video in the description. Make sure you check it out. Bills, Falcons. God bless you guys. We'll see you next time.